I don't remember women being this beautiful, the Lakota warriors said, and 6 simple words crashed through a frontier that thought it knew its borders. Picture this: Dakota Territory, 1875. Out here, survival meant obeying the rules and minding the line society drew in dust and law. And yet, some of the most unforgettable stories only begin when someone dares to cross every line. Eliza Warren had come 1,200 miles from Ohio to wed a man she'd only met through ads and letters. She carried hope, a diary, and the last of her savings, enough, she believed, to build a respectable life as a rancher's wife. Instead, the stranger who promised partnership stole her diary, emptied her purse, and vanished before dawn. She stood there on the church steps in her grandmother's ivory gown as the whole town watched, whispers spreading faster than prairie fire. That's when Gray Hawk, a Lakota warrior in blue and white paint, stepped out from the edge of the crowd and spoke those 6 words that would upend both their destinies. In that instant, everything shifted. What followed stunned Cedar Ridge, pushed hard against the territory's laws, and proved something most people refuse to believe: love doesn't ask permission. What would you have done in her place? Kept silent, or listened to the one voice that cut through the noise? Quick aside, tell us where you're watching from and what time it is where you are, and hit subscribe so you don't miss the next story. All right, back to Eliza. This is a tale about nerve, forbidden love, and choosing between the safety of the known and the wild honesty of your heart. And yes, what comes next is true to the bone, even if it sounds impossible. If your pulse just jumped, that's because you already sensed the turn coming. The wind slid down Cedar Ridge's main street carrying dust, gossip, and cut-up dreams as Eliza stood frozen in that ivory dress. Her intended, Martin Kincaid, had disappeared during the night with her money and her diary, leaving only a scrap with 4 cold words: "Gone to California, don't follow." The church, crammed with curious neighbors who had come to witness a mail-order marriage, turned into a theater of pity and scorn. "Poor soul," muttered Mrs. Pritchard, the banker's wife, loud enough for everyone to hear. "What's she to do now? She's got nowhere to go." Every syllable hit Eliza like grit in the eyes. 28 years old and a schoolteacher back in Ohio, she'd saved every dime for 2 long years to risk a life out west. Men there had called her an old maid, too opinionated, too educated. Martin's letters had promised a partnership, a capable rancher who wanted an equal, not a servant. Instead, she'd been fleeced and left on display in a place where women had few protections and even fewer opportunities to claw back dignity. That's when she saw him at the edge of the crowd. Gray Hawk was unlike anyone she had ever seen. Tall, broad-shouldered, his bronze skin marked in careful bands of blue and white paint. Eagle feathers caught the late light as they threaded through his long black hair, and the beadwork on his buckskins told stories she could not yet read. He had come to Cedar Ridge with 2 Lakota men for their regular trading, buffalo hides, and finally made goods for flour, coffee, and winter iron. The town tolerated their presence because it needed what they brought, even as tension between settlers and native nations swelled like a storm. But there was something different about the way he watched her. Where others saw scandal and failure, he seemed to see someone standing her ground. He walked forward with an ease that made others look clumsy, moccasins near silent on the church steps. The crowd hushed. Under territorial law, mixed marriages were forbidden. Gray Hawk didn't seem to care. He met her eyes and spoke, calm and clear. "I don't remember women being this beautiful." Eliza felt her breath catch, startled not by flattery, but by the reverence in his voice. In nearly 3 decades, no one had ever spoken to her with such unguarded honesty. Gray Hawk didn't look away. "The man who left you like a wounded deer for wolves is a fool who does not know true worth," he said, his English careful and sure. Among the Lakota, a woman of your strength would be honored, protected, and cherished. The murmur in the crowd sharpened into nervous buzzing. Reverend Alden stepped forward, face stiff with disapproval. Now, he declared, this is a matter for civilized folks to handle. Greyhawk's features didn't change, but something flared in his eyes. Civilized, he replied, voice quiet as thunder. Your civilized man stole her money and slipped away like a coyote in darkness. Where is your honor? Eliza, shaken but curious, heard herself say, you speak English very well. Greyhawk inclined his head. My grandmother was captured by white soldiers as a child. She learned your language, taught it to her children and grandchildren. She said knowledge is a weapon that cannot be stolen or taken away. The truth of it hung in the air. This was not some caricature dreamed up by fearful minds. This was a thoughtful, educated man willing to challenge white authority in the town square. What are you suggesting? Eliza asked, even though part of her already knew. Greyhawk held her gaze. I am suggesting you deserve better than to be abandoned like something diseased. Among my people, a woman chooses her own path. If you wish, there's a path besides the one these people have chosen for you. Whispers turned into quiet outrage. Everyone knew intermarriage between whites and Indians was illegal under territorial law. This is entirely inappropriate. Reverend Alden sputtered. Miss Warren, you cannot consider such a blasphemous notion. Eliza studied Greyhawk's face for the slightest trace of mockery and found only respect and something dangerously close to hope. You don't even know me, she said. Why offer this to a stranger? Greyhawk's mouth tilted, warm and sure. I know you traveled many dangerous days on faith that proved false. I know you stand with dignity under shame. I know you speak with intelligence and look me in the eye without fear. That is the you that matters. Mrs. Pritchard shoved her way through the crowd, voice sharp enough to cut. Eliza Warren, surely you're not entertaining this savage's proposition. Think of your reputation, your immortal soul. Eliza laughed without humor. My reputation? What reputation is left to save? I'm a penniless schoolteacher abandoned by a con man in front of an entire town. And my soul? She glanced back at Greyhawk. I'm beginning to think God cares more about kindness than skin. Greyhawk lifted a hand, steady as stone. I do not ask for an answer here, he said. This choice needs thought. I will return in 3 days. If you want to hear more of what I offer, meet me at the trading post at sunset. If you do not come, I will understand and honor your decision. He turned to go, then paused and faced the townspeople with quiet dignity. You call my people savage. Tell me, who is more savage? The man who steals from a woman and abandons her, or the man who offers her protection and honor? The words startled even those who had come to gawk. Sheriff Doyle shouldered in, hand resting on his revolver. That's enough, he snapped. Greyhawk, conduct your business and move along. Miss Warren, you come with me until we make proper arrangements. Greyhawk didn't step back. Sheriff, you have no authority over a free woman's choice. If she wishes to speak with me, that is her right under the laws you claim to respect. Heat prickled in the air. Townsmen edged closer, fingers near gun grips. Greyhawk's 2 companions shifted, prepared to back their leader. Eliza realized she was standing at the center of a fuse. Wait, she said, her voice somehow clear in the tension. Everyone wait. She looked from Greyhawk, who offered partnership instead of pity, to her neighbors, whose faces showed suspicion and fear. I need time to think, she said at last. This decision won't be made in public or in haste. Greyhawk nodded once. Wisdom, he said. 3 days. Sunset. Trading post. Then he left with his men, their exit leaving behind a ferment of judgment. and one woman staring down the biggest choice of her life. What would you decide, knowing one path kept you hungry and the other demanded you risk everything? Eliza spent the next 3 days as a reluctant guest at Mrs. Hargrove's boarding house, where Christian charity was served up with a heavy ladle of moral warning. That Indians filled your head with foolishness, the widow told her over weak tea. No good has ever come from mixing with their kind. But Cedar Ridge itself kept teaching Eliza fierce truths about who was truly civilized. She watched Sheriff Doyle accept coins from men who sold illegal whiskey to Lakota traders. She saw Reverend Alden close the church door on a Lakota family seeking shelter during a sudden storm. She noticed shopkeepers accidentally shorting native sellers with rigged scales, overcharging for coffee, sugar, nails, anything they could fudge. How do you measure civility when a yardstick is bent? On the second day, Eliza visited the schoolhouse, hoping to fall back on experience and find work. The school board, represented by Banker Pritchard, made their position painfully clear. "Given the irregularities of your situation," he said smoothly, "we find it inappropriate to place you in front of our youth." Eliza's jaw tightened. "Irregularities? Your association with that Indian warrior has sparked quite a lot of talk." "Association?" she shot back. "He spoke to me for 5 minutes in daylight on church steps. Nevertheless, we can't have someone of questionable judgment shaping young minds. Perhaps you should consider returning east." Eliza held her tongue but thought, with what money? Martin Kincaid had emptied everything but the clothes on her back. That evening, an elderly Lakota woman knocked on the boarding house door. She stood straight as a cottonwood, her dark eyes bright and assessing. "My name is Wichapi," she said in perfect English. "Gray Hawk is my grandson. He asked me to speak with you so you may understand our ways for yourself." Wichapi sat with Eliza and told stories that ran counter to everything the town had whispered. In their camps, women owned property. They could leave abusive husbands. They served as healers, midwives, and advisors whose voices counted. Their communities valued wisdom over wealth, contribution over blood. Among whites, Wichapi observed, too often women are traded like horses, given little say in their fate. Greyhawk sees your mind and your strength. He offers partnership, not ownership. Eliza's chest tightened. "But I know nothing of your language or customs," she confessed. "How can I belong?" Wichapi's smile creased like river sand in sunlight. "Language can be learned. Ways can be learned. Character cannot. My grandson believes yours is good." As the third sunset neared, Eliza's decision took on the weight of a life. She could stay in Cedar Ridge, scraping by while a chorus of judgments followed her, or she could attempt to crawl back east penniless, or she could go discover what Greyhawk truly meant by partnership. The trading post sat just beyond the last clapboard buildings like a small island between two countries. Eliza walked toward it with the last light turning the prairie copper. Beneath a cottonwood, Greyhawk waited. No war paint now, just simple buckskin that made him look somehow both less imposing and more real. "You came," he said, the words unwinding the coil in her chest. "I came to hear what you really offer," Eliza replied, surprised by her own steadiness. "Your grandmother spoke of respect and partnership. But what does that actually look like for someone like me?" Greyhawk looked out over the tall grass. "It means joining a people who judge worth by character, not color," he said. "It means learning new ways, yes, and teaching what you know in return. Our children will need both." Eliza swallowed. "And if I can't adapt? If your people don't accept me?" Greyhawk considered, honest as ever. "Some will struggle at first. Others will greet you as I do. I will stand beside you as you learn." Eliza looked back at Cedar Ridge. Lamps were flickering to life in windows that would never welcome her again. She turned back to Gray Hawk, a warrior who offered something no white man ever had: genuine respect. "What happens now?" she asked, the question pushed by both fear and hope. "Now we walk a new path," he answered. "If you choose it. But understand, this choice will change everything. When you leave with me, you leave that world behind." Eliza thought of her grandmother's dress, of the promises Martin had burned to ash. She heard Wachapi's words again: women who chose their destinies. She put her hand in his. "Then let's begin," she said. "Could you have stepped into that unknown, not knowing who would stand with you and who would try to stop you?" 6 months later, Eliza, now called Daybreak Woman among the Lakota, knelt by a clear stream with 3 women who had become family. Her skin had bronzed under the prairie sun. Her hands were toughened by work she was proud of, and her laughter came easier than it ever had. Gray Hawk had kept every promise. Their marriage, made in Lakota tradition, treated her as a partner rather than property. She taught English to the children and helped negotiate fairer trades. In turn, she learned plant medicine, child-rearing practices, and the art of beadwork, patient stitch upon patient stitch. Quiet Fawn, an elder who had taken Eliza under her wing, watched her thoughtfully. "You smile more each day," she said. "The sadness I saw when you arrived has turned to joy." Eliza touched the beautiful beaded dress she wore, a wedding gift created by Gray Hawk sisters and aunts. "I never knew a life could be like this," she admitted. "I never knew a marriage could be built on respect." The peaceful rhythm of the afternoon changed when Gray Hawk approached the stream, a shadow of seriousness on his face. "White soldiers have been seen near our hunting grounds," he told her. "They're searching for something or someone." A chill licked down Eliza's back. She had always known this day could come. "They're looking for me, aren't they?" "Perhaps," Gray Hawk said, his voice steady. "It changes nothing. You are Lakota now, Daybreak Woman. You are my wife. Our laws protect you." Eliza glanced up at the sky's wide bowl, its blue as vast as a future she had chosen with both hands. She steeled herself. Some tests were inevitable. What mattered was how you met them. At first light the next morning, the sound of horses rolled over the prairie like a drum. Captain Harlan rode in with a patrol of 30 cavalrymen, their weapons ready and their faces set. The air rippled with tension. "We're here for the white woman known as Eliza Warren," Harlan announced, scanning the camp. "She is wanted for questioning on charges related to illegal cohabitation with hostiles." Gray Hawk stepped forward, every inch the leader. "My wife, Daybreak Woman, is under Lakota law," he said. "You hold no authority here." Harlan's lip curled. "Your wife? That woman is a citizen of the United States, and she will return with us to face proper justice." Eliza emerged from their lodge wearing full Lakota dress. She didn't rush. She didn't drop her gaze. "Captain Harlan," she said, voice clear, "I am Daybreak Woman, wife of Gray Hawk. The person you call Eliza Warren no longer exists." "Don't be absurd," Harlan snapped. "You'll come whether you like it or not." But Eliza had gained more than a new name in those months. She had found a spine she didn't know she owned. "I will not go," she said, each word placed like a stone. "I chose to marry Gray Hawk of my own free will. I choose to remain with my husband and his people." Warriors drew closer, bows and rifles at the ready. Soldiers shifted in their saddles, hands on carbines. The standoff stretched taut as wire. Gray Hawk didn't look away from Harlan. Eliza didn't look away from her future. At last, the captain measured the cost in blood it would take to drag her off that ground and decided he wasn't prepared to pay it. "Not today." "This isn't over," he said coldly, wheeling his horse. The patrol withdrew. Eliza exhaled. How many times does a life pivot on what you refuse to surrender? When the dust settled, Gray Hawk found her by that same stream. the place where so many of their first conversations had taken shape. He crouched beside her and asked simply, "Do you regret your choice?" Eliza looked down at the water, at the reflection of a woman whose eyes were no longer dulled by shame. Not the abandoned bride in wrinkled silk, but someone remade by courage and belonging. "Never," she said softly. "For the first time in my life, I'm exactly where I belong." Because the truth is, Eliza's story began as a cautionary tale. A woman left alone on a church step, stripped of money, reputation, and any easy way forward in a land that rarely offered second chances to women like her. But Greyhawk looked beyond the mess and saw what her own people had overlooked: a quick mind, a steady heart, a will that didn't buckle under scrutiny. He offered what no white man of that era would have thought to offer: a real partnership, the dignity of an equal, and the radical premise that a woman could choose her own fate. Their union wasn't simply a marriage between two individuals. It became a bridge across cultures laid down plank by plank with respect, humor, and grit. Eliza trusted a man whose world had been painted for her as enemy territory. Greyhawk extended protection to a woman whose people had often done as wrong. Both of them stepped into uncertainty. Both of them bet on a future no one else could see. That leap of faith built a life neither could have imagined, one that didn't erase who they were, but made more of it. Doesn't it make you wonder what we might build if we stopped measuring one another by our fear? Here's what their story proves. The life we plot out isn't always the life that fits. Sometimes fate arrives on horseback with a fierce gaze and pain on his cheeks, speaking words that slice through prejudice like a sharp wind. Sometimes it looks like a hand extended at the edge of town and a promise that you'll be treated as a partner, not a possession. The Dakota plains where Daybreak Woman found her true home are still there, wide, beautiful, and full of echoes. If you stand quietly, you can almost hear the laughter by the stream, the murmur of elders, the thrum of hoofbeats trailing off into afternoon. The love stories born there defied the rules of their time, and that's precisely why they still matter. They remind us that the human heart doesn't check passports or color charts. It recognizes courage. It recognizes kindness. It knows when it's seen. When we choose to step off the map others draw for us, we open ourselves to a life that's truer than the one we thought we were supposed to live. If this story moved you, tap like and subscribe for more true frontier tales, and drop a comment with your thoughts or what you'd love to hear next.